Hi, my name is Mary-Jeanine Ibarguen. I'm here with the Sewing Studio and we're at Quilt Week. And I'm going to show you today how to baste a quilt, maybe a way you've never seen before. If you plan to free motion quilt it in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then you can absolutely just use the spray. It will stick. If you think it's going to take a little longer to free motion, you're going to want to use some pins on top of that spray. All right, well, let's get started. I have the back of the quilt, and often the front of your quilt is just maybe 42 inches wide and you wish you just had a little more space on the back. So what I've done is I've cut the fold off of the backing fabric and I've added just a few extra inches down the middle of the back of the quilt, and that gives us the extra inches that we need that we're actually going to cut off eventually, but we're going to line this up, this quilt back here. So we've got the half of the back on the table, and then when we're finished setting that up, we'll do the other half. So here's our batting, my handy helper here, my husband, and we are going to open this up, and Stefan is going to line up the corner up here with the fabric, and we know we've got a little extra backing than batting, so we're going to line this up here, and we're going to smooth this out. And then once we've got this smoothed out, he's going to pull the whole entire thing that way, so we've got a tablecloth here to deal with. So we're going to continue smoothing. You know, this is kind of like painting, as I tell my students. Most of the work is in the prep, getting ready to do the basting, getting ready to do the painting, and that the actual basting doesn't take nearly as long as it does to get ready for it. So that's corner here, and I'm going to set down my corner next. So I'm going to leave a little batting there, and we're going to kind of straighten this out a little bit. So a couple things I wanted to say. You'll notice that our batting and our backing is just a little bit bigger than the front of the quilt, and that is not because the back and batting are going to get smaller. It's so you have a handle when you're quilting the border, but even more importantly, you have a way to settle that top down onto the backing and batting without having to be perfectly exactly right on the corner. You've got some leeway there. The other thing I wanted to mention is my favorite product is Sulky KK2000. I've used all the other brands. I keep going back to this one because there's actually a lot of product in this bottle, even though it doesn't seem like it. I can do 2 quilts with 1 bottle. And as far as I'm concerned, it's time versus money. If you want to save a little time, spray basting is definitely the way to go. Okay, so here we go. We're going to lift up the top of the quilt, and he's going to lean up against the table so it doesn't fall down there. I'm going to take my bottle, and if I read it, it says shake it well, and then it says you're going to spray about 6 inches away from the edge. I've seen a lot of videos where people are spraying on a vertical surface, and it seems to me like a lot of that product is just going to fall on the ground and not be used. So I like to spray baste on a horizontal surface, so 100% of my product is falling down on the place where I want it to be, and I'm saving money. So we're going to spray, and I'm going to spray away from the camera. You notice, I'll do it with my right hand here, helps to be ambidextrous. I'm spraying slowly but not too slowly. I always make sure that I get the edge of the quilt because I don't want the edge of my quilt to come up. And I'm not spray painting this, so it's totally covering it, but I do want fairly good coverage. Now you notice he just handed me the quilt, and he is now, since he's on that side, he's doing the padding and the pressing and the padding and the pressing. And now that, because it's a big enough quilt, we did that in triangles. So now he can do the other side. Now he's not pushing so hard that the fabric is stretching, but he's pushing just hard enough to get it to go stick down. And now we can kind of do this to make sure that that spray really stuck well. And now that that's done, I can lift up my half, whoops, and slide the whole thing over this way, lay it down, and now we can do the same thing. I'm going to lift up my side, and and I'm just pulling it there. That's as far as it'll go because you see how well it's stuck there. So he's going to make sure he gets the rest of this. There's no overspray going on the ground. There's no overspray going on my table. And he's going to hold it, and I'm going to push and pat and push and pat. And if we end up with a little bubble here, it's repositionable, so I lift up, and I noticed it was needed a little bit in the corner here. So if it's repositionable, so if I don't get it right the first time, I can lift it up and do it again. There are some products out there that are not repositionable. Once you pull them up, you have to respray the entire thing. So another reason why I like this particular brand. Okay, so the front is done. Now my other great trick is we lift up the entire project and we flip it over. And now we're going to treat the back of the quilt just like we did the front of the quilt. The back of the quilt is not going to have any bubbles or problems because it's going to look just as good as the front. So he's going to hand this to me, and we're going to hold this up, and he's going to spray because he's on that side. And yep. So he's checking to see where the front of the quilt is. And he's making sure that the edge of the quilt is going to get a good dose of spray. And now we're handing this over to him. And again, pushing and patting, making sure all the bubbles come out. Now here's a little wrinkle here, and I love this product because you could just kind of do that and the wrinkles get out of the fabric. It's almost like magic. Now here's a little wrinkle here, and it's not too bad. So I'm just kind of pressing it out, and it worked out just fine. The more pieced a quilt is, the more you have to take care not to push lines out of alignment, make sure they stay straight. Now again, Stefan is going to pull the entire quilt toward him, and I'm going to hand him the backing, and this is the very last quadrant we're going to do, and he's going to pull until he feels, there it is. So that's where the spray is, so we know that it's not going to go any farther. And I'm going to spray. Notice I'm not going super fast because that's not going to lay down enough product. You kind of learn the amount of product you need as you go. So I figure 6 inches away, and I kind of go at a medium speed. Now I'm going to take half of this because, again, it's pretty long. So he's going to push and pat and push and pat. We lay that down. And then the final thing here. Whoops, I see a wrinkle there, so we're just going to pull on that a little bit. And down she goes. Done. This spray will last 2 or 3 weeks before it has to be quilted, or again, throw in a few pins and you'll be fine. So, well, thank you for watching. I wanted to mention that spray basting is a great tool for your quilting arsenal, but make sure you've got a helper. It's so much easier to have 4 hands. If you only have 2 hands, you're going to end up having to tape the backing and the batting down before you lay your top down. It's just harder with 2 hands, so make sure you get a helper. Also, if you don't have a big enough table, it's okay to move the quilt back and forth on that table. We love Quilt Week. Lots of beautiful quilts to look at, lots of great vendors, and come, you'll have a great time.